open your hearts and just be here in your innocence and your openness and compassion, and that will be the beginning of wonderful things coming into your life. Good evening, Bharati. As some of you know, I have been each week taking a short excerpt from Gurji's writings or Gurji's talks. And I've been finding along with you that even if you take one paragraph or two paragraphs, it's as though I could leave you with these words on a deserted island, and within months you'd be, or within minutes, you could be enlightened. Each statement he makes brings us back to our source. He says, and this is taken from Atmabodha, which is the teachings of Sri Shankaracharya, and this is Sri Brahmananda's translation and commentary of Sri Shankaracharya's works. And for anyone who's interested, the title of this book is called Atmabodha, Self-Analysis and Self-Knowledge. This self-analysis is not what we spend thousands of dollars for in a therapist's office or a psychiatrist's office. Self is spelled with a capital S, self-analysis, to analyze who we are through direct contact with the source of our being. We have to, throughout our day, and sometimes even at night, if we can't fall asleep, we have to always at least look into, inquire into, self-inquiry. Why are we unhappy? What makes us unhappy? Or what things in life cause us to be unhappy, even if you're very young, to ask the question, why was I not happy today? Because sometimes you have a bad day at school, right? I had plenty of them. Did you ever have a bad day at school, Nina? Sure, she said. Well, even then, at a young age, you can ask yourself, what really made me unhappy? Was it what happened to me? What was said to me? What was done to me? No, that wasn't it. I became unhappy thinking about it, wondering about it, planning my revenge, what I would do next time he did that or she did that, right? I know you very well, Nina. But if we ask that question every night, and Gurji used to say, summarize your experience, meaning look into your day. Was it a happy day? What made it happy? Nobody bothered you. That's what made you happy. Nobody disturbed it. Because people disturb our natural happiness. And why did the unhappiness last so long? The incident lasted only 2 minutes. But you were miserable the whole day, whenever you thought about it. There's I haven't told this story in a long time, a very famous story in Zen Buddhism about a master walking with his disciple, 2 monks, one master and his disciple, and they were walking along for a while, and they seemed happy enough, and then they heard a young woman crying, and the master said, go see what the trouble is. And he found this young woman crying beside the river. And she said, I came over earlier in the day when the current was very mild and the river was shallow and I could easily walk across. And then the monk said, well, why are you crying? She said, I'm afraid of water, and the current is very strong now. I'm afraid I wouldn't make it across. And he said, just a minute, I want to tell my master. So the young man went to the master, thinking the master was going to invite her to stay at the monastery. He told the story, and the master said, just a minute, let's go down together. And he said, I can help you. The master said, I can help you. And with that, he picked up the young girl. She's about 17. And he crossed over the hard rocks with her through the current. She thanked him. She clasped her hands in thank you. And he came back. He said, let's go. And they were walking for about a mile. And he heard his disciple breathing very hard. And he turned around. He said, anything wrong? Are you tired? He said, I'm not tired. No, there's nothing wrong. The master said, so let's continue. And he continued for another hour. So now it's 2 hours. And this time he heard the breathing very erratic. And he turned and he said, will you tell me what's wrong with you? We've walked a lot. I've never heard you breathe that way. He said, I'm very angry at you, Master. He said, why are you angry? He said, I saw how you picked up that young girl. I saw how you carried her across the current. You know you're not supposed to engage in any sensual pleasure. And the master said, let's sit down. You must be exhausted. I carried that girl for only 2 minutes, and you've been carrying her for 3 hours. You need a rest. So we have to see for ourselves, not from books, not from talks. We have to see for ourselves what is causing the suffering. What is causing us to be unhappy? If we don't see it for ourselves, we'll find the books interesting, fascinating. We'll make rules about what we should do and have new resolutions. But by the time we get older and we're ill and we don't have the energy to really inquire, it'll be too late. And Sri Brahmananda said, we'll have to repeat this same lifetime again. So it's never too late. Recognition, sudden seeing, takes only an instant. Doesn't matter if you're in your childhood or you're in your older age, it doesn't matter. You have to see that it's only the body that gets old. It's only the mind that gives us trouble. We have a mind, it's all from Gurdjieff. We have a mind, we have a body, but we are more than those. We are the observer, the witness of those. And just because the body gets older, the body becomes ill, doesn't mean anything has happened to the soul. But the message tonight, as you will hear, is we have to do this. We can't be lazy. All that's needed is for us to be alert, to be wide awake, to not let life slip by. Listen to what he says. This is Sri Brahmananda now. A true seeker does not need to know what mind or ego is. I can't tell you how many questions come through the email about the ego. Why is it bothering me so much? Why doesn't it, this afternoon, why doesn't the ego let me advance? Why does it come as an obstacle every time? Is the ego the same as the mind? What is the difference between them? Gurdjieff says, please, wait a minute. A true seeker doesn't need to know what mind or ego is. For the true seeker, the most important thing is to experience, which means have direct contact with, who am I? Who am I really? Am I a girl, a boy, a woman, a man? Am I this weight, another weight? Which of my different bodies I've had in this one lifetime, my 17-year-old body, my 27-year-old body, my 47-year-old body, my 67. Do you want me to keep going? I can. Which of those bodies is my real body? I hope it's not this one, because this is the one I don't care anything about losing. This is the oldest one. This is the sickest one. Shh, it's okay. This is still a useful one. But why should we care about losing the oldest body we've had when we haven't cared about losing the other bodies? Anybody have an altar for your 17-year-old body? If you do, come up and talk to me. I'm worried about you. But it's odd. It's an odd thing that we do, that we somehow don't identify with the other bodies that are gone now, that we thought was what we were. How could they be? They keep changing. Right? So if somebody says, how old are you? Which body are you talking about? And you have a whole realm of photographs. Which, you want this one? I was 28 there. Makes no sense. And yet, I can tell you, because some of my friends now, best friends, oldest friends, are in their 70s, 80s, 90s. I have a friend in her 90s. She was fine with these teachings. She loved these teachings until she had an accident at the age of 90, and the doctor said, you have to change your whole lifestyle, and suddenly made her acutely aware of her mortality. And now every time I call her, she's crying. I said, why are you crying? She said, I don't want to die. I said, but you died 1 million times already. You died to this life. You were a wife. You died to that. You were an artist. You died to that. You were a skater, a folk dancer. You died to all those lives. If you allow your body to drop away, you'll bring your attachments back. Those are the teachings. How come you believed these teachings 2 months ago, and today you're having trouble with them? Because we have never experienced these teachings and applied them to our lives so as to bring about a transformation. So Guruji says, forget about all these intellectual and scholarly questions. Forget about your curiosity about what the ego is. Listen. In this inquiry of the self, which means the inquiry into who am I? Who am I? I'm not what people tell me. I am what I feel I am. What I'm aware is separate from the aging and the changes of the body. It's separate. In this inquiry of the self, who am I? The mind with all its power returns to its original source. And in the state of Atman, the state of Supreme Self, the seeker finds that there's no such thing as mind existing independently. And in such a state, the mind is automatically controlled. I'm going to read that again, and please, that's why I only took 2 paragraphs. Please tell me what you think is meant by that. If you understand that, then you're on your way towards a complete transformation. In this inquiry of the self, when we ask deeply, focus on that question, who am I? And we do that in meditation. Guruji is telling us, this is Guruji, the mind, our mind, with all its power, returns to its original source. And in the state of Atman, the true self, the seeker discovers really, that there is no such thing as mind existing independently. And in such a state, the mind is automatically controlled. what does it mean when Gurdjieff says, in that state of absolute awareness, Atman, the state of Atman, the seeker finds that there's no such thing as mind existing independently. What does that mean? Where do we lose our minds every night? In deep sleep, right? A few hands are up. Is your hand up, Annette? No? Don't get scared. I never call anybody unless your hand is up. Don't get scared. I get. From thought. And whose thoughts are they?
No, source.
From the source? Right. From the source. Right, that's one thing. But on that's the highest meaning. But on the relative plane, Pamela.
Yeah, that we're all one, we're all part of everything.
You're all so high. These are all right. But I want to know, if somebody had trouble understanding English tonight, could you put it in practical terms? That will help us. Who's that in the back? Yes, tell us.
It exists, meaning that you have to have your heart, you have to have feelings in order for your mind to think about them.
So you're saying that the thoughts come from the feelings.
Right.
All right. But the word is independently. Independent from what? The mind doesn't exist. Now you're adding another element, unless there are feelings that create the thoughts. But the mind doesn't exist without memory, without thinking, right? All thinking comes from memory. There's absolutely no new thought. There are no new dreams. Dreams come from the present. You'll hear about the present from the past and the present from the future in the next reading. But to understand that there's you cannot say, I have a mind, until you say, my mind is full of thoughts now. You cannot say, I have a mind, because a mind is the ego. The thinking mind is the ego. And the thinking mind, or the ego, is always the past. Right? In deep sleep, it would seem like we have a mind, but the mind doesn't return until the memories return. Otherwise, in a state of deep sleep, no mind exists, no memories exist. In the state of dreaming, yes, subconscious, unconscious memories are there. But when you recognize there cannot be a mind without thoughts being there, do you ever look for your mind when you realize you're happy and not thinking? Oh, where are you, mind? I want you to take part in this. This is wonderful. You've never been with me when I've been perfectly happy without you. Come on. It's a silly thing because the mind is what creates the mischief for us. So to recognize that we have a mind, but we are not the mind. That we exist independently. We don't even need a body. The body can be in deep, dreamless sleep, and yet our consciousness can be somewhere on another planet. Our consciousness Supreme Consciousness doesn't disappear when the mind-body disappears. So he says, as soon as we go into this inquiry, the mind becomes all-powerful. It returns to its original source. And in that state of Atman, the seeker finds that there is no such thing as mind existing independently. And in such a state, the mind is automatically controlled. Gurdjieff used to say, if we try to control the mind on the level of the mind through ordinary psychoanalysis, through ordinary calculation or logic, we'll make ourselves worse. You can watch. Because it's the mind that created the problem in the first place. And now we're asking the mind to go to that level, the mental level, and solve the problem. It will never do that. Because as long as the problem stays alive, the ego's alive. And the ego doesn't want to die. The ego wants to continue. So what do we have to do? We said, then what do we do, Gurji? That's the only thing we know. No, he said. You transcend that through meditation. You come into direct contact with that which you truly are, and something happens to the mind, to the brain, when it's exposed to the full power of what they call the buddhi mind, the wisdom mind. There is a wisdom mind, the intuitive mind, that knows what you're listening to, understands this. How many of you feel that this is familiar to you, that it's something you understand? Raise your hands. Yeah? Really, show me, encourage me, otherwise I go home. Okay, I'm only saying what he said. This is all familiar, even Nina, who's, 9 now? 10? 11. I want you to stop doing this to me. I can't use you as an example when you're 27 anymore. I like when you're little. But she raised her hand, she understood. And she'll understand, and Ilyena will understand, who's older. But we know, Gurji spoke all the time to children, saying, you know this, you get this? And they say, yeah. And he would have a special meditation for them. You would have them floating on a white cloud and feeling that they had left their body down on the earth. And then they got that feeling, I don't need my body to float on a white cloud. He had special meditation for the children. Without, and this is the example that I've always cherished, without self-inquiry, one is as unlikely to control the mind by means of the mind as it is for a thief appointed as a detective to catch and expose the thief who is himself. He says, without self-inquiry, without asking that direct question, the mind, to try and control the mind by means of the mind itself, is as difficult as it is for a thief who's disguised as a detective to catch and expose the thief who is himself. It's the mind that created this problem. And then we try to use the mind, the ego, to get at the source of the problem. It'll never find it. It doesn't want to find it. It will always come up with something new to bother you, to distract you. All right, never mind this problem. I'll give you another problem to solve. You have to solve why you can't find another job. That's what the ego will tell you to do. When really, I shouldn't bring this in, but it's true, the hardships of our life, according to the great gurus, the great enlightened beings, the hardships continue to be there to wake us up. Everybody who comes to this ashram comes from some source of pain. Something is not right in your life. Gurji referred to it as the missing syndrome. You may, where's your daughter? I miss your daughter too. You may have beautiful children, you may have a lovely marriage, you may have a wonderful career, but something is missing. You feel it, and it's because you're not home. You're not at your source. So if you're lucky enough to listen to the teachings and be stroked very gently, wake up, dear. See, I'm giving you lovely teachings of Sri Brahmananda and Sri Shankaracharya and Buddha. Wake up. This is a lovely place to wake up at this ashram. It's like Shangri-La. If you don't, you get a shock. You get a shock. Because if you're having a nightmare, you want to wake up from that. So sometimes when you wonder, why are so many things proving to be a challenge when I've been so good, I've been meditating, I've been this, I've been that, doesn't matter what you've been doing. If you have not gone to the end of your self-inquiry and realize that the things that we think are the troubles in our life are not really. They're what we have made them into. Whereas the gurus look upon them as devices. Remember, Guruji used that word, devices, to wake us up and to realize that every relationship, every problem we have is simply for the sake of the self, to wake us up to what we really are. If everything's going smoothly, you're not the chosen ones. The chosen ones are those sorry that have the nightmares in their lives. Those are the chosen ones, because you go very quickly back to the ashram. You go very quickly back to the readings and to the chanting and the scriptures, or to your religion. Something takes you up because you don't want to stay with those things that are pulling you down. But there's an easier way. Come as often as you can to the ashram or to any place that reminds you of who you are and the work you have to do internally, and include it as part of your life. You'll find yourself having a life that's not so challenging. Those are the shocks that are intended out of love to wake you up, to keep you awake. Please don't blame the other people. No, they're only characters in a play. They are what gives that drama life. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a drama, and it would be boring if you didn't have those challenges. Guruji says, self-inquiry, last sentence, is the best method to discover what mind is, as well as to know the real I. So self-inquiry or deep meditation or witnessing effortlessly reveals to us what we knew all the time, that mind is an illusion, that without thoughts, without memories, without thinking, mind does not exist. So you all watch that illusion go up the step, go inside. That's an illusion. The ego will say, don't listen to that one, watch that one. Go there. As I saw you just for a second wanted to get away from this because it sounds too hard to do. It's not hard at all. Just stay alert during the day. Stay alert to everything. And don't label things bad or good. They're just part of the drama. They're just part of the play, the Leela. It's all part of an interesting life. And remember Guruji's words, what prepares us for the truth of who we are is that we've already had 1,000,000 shocks, lifetime after lifetime. And if we don't have them in the first or second part of our lives, it's a very big shock when you're about 65 to really see what's in the mirror. A very big shock, because you're still expecting the 25-year-old face. And it dawns on you that that old person living in the mirror is you. It's a shock. What happened to your life? I won't embarrass anyone, but when I'm with older people, I will often say, isn't it a shock when you look in the mirror and you see a 70, 80-year-old face, when you feel, 17? After you've meditated for many years, you feel younger than you ever felt before you came into yoga. You ask Mark Dharmadev over there how old he feels. How old do you feel, Dharmadev? 17. He does. I try to slow him down, walk a little slower. He says, why? I'm 17. Before these teachings, I would say, gee, Marv, you look a little tired. I feel like I'm 70 today. But this is how it feels when you take care of your body, but you don't identify with the body.